next speaker is Deane. Michael is a construction professional with over 20 years of construction management and administrative experience as both an owner and a builder. He's the operations manager for sustainable construction at Turner Construction Company and a LEED accredited professional. Michael.
Good afternoon. I apologize in advance for death by PowerPoint. I hope to blow through it quickly, but I have trouble editing myself. Just to put this talk in perspective, Turner Construction Company is the largest general builder in the U.S. We were about a $9 billion company last year. Turner International is well represented in this part of the world and many parts of the world. We have done a number of tall buildings, including, I think, 10 or 11 of the 100 tallest. And we have done a number of green buildings. This slide changes every time I use it because our green building volume is so large, but presently we have approximately 250 projects in our portfolio that we engaged between 2000 and now. 61 LEED certified projects, another 100 in the LEED pipeline, and our parent company, Ctbuh, is a member of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, so we have a certain bias towards trying to build sustainable building with very much of a top-down focus. To put it in perspective of our total workload, and I think this is important to mention in terms of market transformation, in the last 3 years, 2005, 6, and 7, green buildings have gone from 17% of our sales to 24% in 1 year, and work in place in 2006, which represents the sales roughly of 2005, $1.3 billion, and then last year we put in place $1.8 billion, well over 20% of our total work, and a 42% increase in just 1 year. And to give you one example of green building in a major urban center, simply Turner's work in New York City, and we define green building these days as LEED certified, $1 billion worth of work completed, another billion plus in progress, and 13 billion in backlog just in New York City. Basically, the commercial market in New York now, and I think in many other cities, is that no new commercial project will be going forward that is not seeking LEED certification. Turner has had a formal commitment to green building since 2004, and we have upped the ante every year by trying to raise the bar for our own performance and also to stay ahead of our competitors. So finally, today I'm going to talk about the boring stuff, which is the builder's role in the process and the evolution of that process as we learned how to build and how to contribute to the process of designing and building sustainable buildings. And then only a little bit about the evolution of the product itself, the building and the building in the larger context of the urban fabric. The traditional building model was sequential and with a bunch of silos, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this concept. But in the traditional model, the builder was at the end of the line, and the design was complete before the builder ever saw it, and any impact by the builder, any attempt by the builder to influence anything other than means and methods was looked on as a negative. And when we started to consider sustainable elements, the early model was, this is my building, what can you do to green it, which was an add by definition. So green was always considered an added cost, and an added first cost with little thought to cost savings and environmental benefits over time. The new way, what we call the integrated design model, tries to take all the members of the project team and get them together from the beginning of the process so that we can all learn from each other. And the builder in particular has certain things to bring to the table. And if we are brought into the discussion early enough, we can help the team get it right the first time without any impact on schedule, cost, or program. The result, I think, is a better product, quicker to market, and that certainly serves the economic model. And when green building elements are integrated into the design from the beginning and into the program from the beginning, I'm going to quickly go through some case studies. I'm not really going to be talking about the particular design aspects of the buildings themselves, but I'm going to use them to try to illustrate the evolution of our self-knowledge and our improvement in project delivery methods in really a very short period of time, 5 or 6 years, really. 30 Hudson Street in Jersey City was not the first LEED building that Turner designed, but it was, or that had a hand in building, but it was one of the first, and it was certainly the largest. It is still, I think, the largest LEED certified building to date. And it was done at a time, it started in 1999 or 2000, when none of us, no designers, no builders, no performing subcontractors, knew a lot about what it meant to build LEED. But this was an integrated team that did get together because of a committed owner and was trying to figure out something that wasn't really well understood and literally was making it up as we went along. At a time when building green buildings was thought to be both difficult and expensive because nobody knew the process and there weren't very many materials or equipment around to implement. The result of this process was we learned a lot. The building barely got certified, but it did get certified. So that was the beginning. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money to get bare certification. Another project at that time that we were involved in New York, the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, also was seeking LEED certification. And it is somewhat of a cautionary tale because there was a lack of a fully integrated team. The builder wasn't engaged. All good people on the team, but they weren't really talking to one another. They typically started late, didn't do the right kind of paperwork. The owner was primarily concerned with first cost and was hesitant to have a first cost bump because they were operating under a budget. And record keeping especially, which LEED, for instance, is concerned with, was poor. And so the result was a project that will be certified, but not at the level that it could have been if the team had been more facile and more experienced. Also at this time is a building that I think remains one of the best buildings out there, a true exemplar, I think, of what a sustainable building can be, and not super tall, but it has all the elements of what a tall building could have and still be a sustainable building. This is another variation on a theme, a committed owner, a European-based architect, engineer, that was very knowledgeable with cutting-edge technology, not an integrated team, but because the plans and specs were so good, even though there were problems with things like getting European equipment approved for installation in a U.S. building, using traditional delivery methods, they were able to achieve a really classic, for this generation, a classic sustainable building. One of the first 2 or 3 platinum certified buildings, and still I think one of the best. And for Turner as a company, we were able to take this knowledge and put it in our database and make it available to all the future projects, so our collective knowledge was improved by this one building. The next 3 buildings I want to talk about quickly, I think, may be well known to many of you. They were all built in, 2 are built, 1 is in progress in Battery Park City. The first one is the Solaire, which was the first high-rise residential building in the, well, ever, high-rise LEED building. And was the result of a more evolved team that significantly was operating under the mandate of the public-private partnership, the Battery Park City Authority, that at a time when the real estate community in New York would never have attempted a LEED certified building, as a commercially viable model, they were forced to. The cost of doing business in Battery Park City at that time was the equivalent of LEED Silver. And in this case, the first one out of the box had the perfect storm of committed developer, smart builder, excellent designer, all working under a mandate. So cost became secondary because it was a requirement. And the result was a building that was certified above the required level, but at a significant cost premium. So in 2003, the Solaire was built at the level of LEED Gold, but at a 14% cost premium. Now, stepping away from the story just for a moment, at this point, Turner took a look around and said, something's going on here, and conducted a formal survey of 700 plus real estate executives. And for the purposes of today's discussion, the significant finding was that 90+%, virtually all of them, saw that green buildings was going to be an increasing part of their future work. They also told us that green buildings were seen as significantly better buildings on a number of different metrics, so that was the good news. And at the same time, the survey said that there was a significant perception that green buildings cost more, there was a lack of awareness of benefits, and there was a focus on first construction cost, and that was the bad news. The key word here is perception, because what we also knew at this time, both from this study by capital E and another significant study by Davis Langdon Associates, was that the true cost of building green buildings, even in 2003, 2004, 2002, 2003, was actually approximately 2%. So there was a break between the reality and the perception. And one of the things that we took it upon ourselves to do was to educate everyone on the team, including ourselves, as to the true costs and benefits. So, back to the story of buildings. What happened at Battery Park City was this team that built the Solaire stayed together, have now completed a second building called the Verdesian, which was seeking LEED Gold and actually achieved LEED Platinum. And again, it's the first residential high-rise building to achieve LEED Platinum. The cost premiums are coming down. The expertise is going up. These are buildings that are getting better each time around the block. Because one of the things that we've discovered is that the single biggest driver to increase costs is nothing more than inexperience. And that when you can get an experienced team working with an experienced designer and an owner who understands how this is all going to play out, you can drive the cost down to par or very little above par. By 2004, there was a second generation of green buildings. The Hearst Tower was the first commercial building in New York that was built to the LEED NC standard. And at this point, people were starting to get more experienced, and again, above goal. And the key to this story is the Hearst Tower was a $500 million project, achieved LEED Gold for a cost premium of under 2%. So in just a 3 or 4 year period, we've driven that cost down to almost zero. The final story, the final piece of the evolution is 1180 Peachtree, which was a core and shell building that achieved LEED Gold, built by the Heinz Corporation. And the important story here is that Heinz, as a developer, is looking for those Class A tenants that want the best. And what they have determined that in today's market is a LEED building is the new definition of Class A. And their belief is if a building is not LEED, it will be obsolete the day it opens. So their standard pro forma includes those things that will get you a LEED certification or the equivalent, because not everybody is going to go through the certification process, but the fact is the underlying sustainable features of the design and the construction are such that it's a LEED equivalent building. This is the new normal. So today, the new normal is LEED equals Class A. We can deliver LEED Gold at pretty close to par. And from the builder's side, the thing about LEED, which is just, again, our definition, what we use as a benchmark, LEED did not really make much up. LEED gathered best practice and said, It referenced standards that already existed. So we have taken those standards and said, in large part, LEED is best practice. We want to make every project a sustainable project and make that sustainable practice our standard practice. So, what can we specifically do? Rather than just being at the end of the train and getting a design that's a fait accompli and we're just asked to build it, we can get involved in pre-construction and procurement, as well as construction and documentation, but we need a seat at the table. Very briefly, primarily it's self-education and educating the team, and as well as learning from the team, to stay current in a rapidly evolving marketplace, and to be active, not reactive, because I think the traditional builder's model is to wait to be told what to do, and if we can be more assertive than that, make suggestions. The final decisions, of course, are with the owner and with the design team, but we can put some options on the table and make sure that all options are considered. Now, Turner as a company has developed a lot of tools and techniques to integrate this into our process, and I don't think we need to go into them in detail, just the idea is to know that they're there and they're changing how we do business. Very briefly, because I think in the larger conference there's going to be a lot more discussion on this, the evolution of the building product is one from a building that consumes energy, consumes resources, produces waste, to now what we are striving for are buildings that are sustainable, and the benchmark for that is net zero energy. We also need to consider net zero material, zero waste. Water is hugely important, as we all know. And then sometime in the future, to contemplate the notion of a restorative building, which I will simply say is possible. I'm not sure how, but I believe that we will be driven to do it because I think we must, and in any event, we're going to have a good time trying. So that's my story. Thank you very much.